Okay. All right. Make sure I got.
Sorry, I keep laughing about Kokolisa there.
Yeah, it's a great meme.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Unfortunately, the internet didn't notice it that much.
Yeah, we're not great.
It's very, very obscure.
Yeah.
That's like everything we do, though.
Yeah, but particularly obscure. Like you have to be in either listen to those and know their faces.
Yeah.
Or like be on that organized crime forum. Those nerds definitely know who the fuck.
Yeah.
Boško Radović is.
Then let's repost then.
So there are two groups of people in the world who would maybe understand that meme. Our listeners who are very careful about listening and crime nerds.
Yeah.
But specific company.
Yeah. This is like Bakunin's dream, man. This is exactly what he meant. He wanted, criminals and anarchists to rally behind a meme of Kokoliso and the Yugo. That's how I always read it.
That's Bakunin's dream?
That's what I... No?
I'm not sure, but okay.
Huh.
It can be worse than that as a political project.
Yeah. To The Empire Never Ended with Boris, Fritz, and Ray.
Yeah.
Hey.
This is, there's got 2 free episodes out there in the world in a row here from us. We had a little extra one because somebody named Fritz gets confused when months begin and end in the middle of the week. I just can't count that, so I just decided to just start over. I just press reset on this month, and this is our official first free episode of the month. I know no one cares about that but me, but I just wanted to vocalize it.
Okay.
Yeah, there was some confusion in the scheduling, and then I was like, wait, but okay.
There was an extra week. We got fucked.
It was a very abstract confusion.
Yes, it was.
It was a confusion that made sense a lot in Fritz's head.
Or it didn't. That was the problem.
Or didn't, and then...
Yeah.
I think
it's a good thing, because I enjoyed our episode with Podrick very much.
It's more like the reason that it didn't make sense to me only made sense to me. That's the better way, I think, to say that.
Yeah.
Not an unusual feeling.
I mean, I don't know what would you do if you read some of the books written by the people that we'll talk about today. I think you would. I think you would get suicidal.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wait, hold on. You know the books that I've been reading on this show, right? Like, what are you saying now?
I think this is like the anti-Fritz.
It's so woo-woo that you would probably be driven to suicide.
Sorry, Ray,
also
it's
because
actually
it's
pronounced...
self-harm.
It's pronounced anti-Fritz.
Anti-Fritz.
You gotta hit the T really high.
Yeah. It's very... I mean, I think there is a point... I mean, I don't know how would you take it, but it's it's because it's like pseudoscience.
Yeah, that's a bad start.
And then they try to explain their things. They use a lot of numbers and formulas.
That's the best.
And it's like it's totally nuts and doesn't make any sense.
It sounds okay so far.
Yeah. I won't go too much in it because it was definitely, to those, it's very repetitive and nonsensical. Maybe I'll give one example of what they do. Yeah. There's so many things, and these people wrote so many books, and it's very repetitive and boring in the end, really. But,
these people, when you say these people, Ray, who are you talking about?
Well, we are going back in the to the area of psionic warfare.
Oh, yeah. Okay. But I knew it would come in handy.
I've been excited.
Knew it would come in handy.
I've been excited for this episode for some time. This is something that Ray has been talking about in private conversations to people for quite a while.
Yeah.
And so I'm ready for it to go out to the world.
Yeah.
We've already named a year zero after these people, a lost year zero. rather.
So you did some episode on psionic warfare, like
yeah, man. Yeah, we discussed the long history of psionics, working all the way up through the symbolic Hieronymus machine in the 60s, onto like the dark turn it took in the 80s and 90s, finally leading to our own Uncle Chucky, the dark psionic master who inspired such luminaries in the fascist scene as one of the lead guys of the Satanic Front. So if you want to, I mean, maybe we'll unlock that one soon. For the
we should. That was a good.
We'll see.
That was a good series. That was more than one episode, right?
That was okay. That was a 5-part F-Files series, I think.
Yeah,
maybe 4 or 5-part F-Files.
Oh, yeah.
That was every single episode was just one piece of explaining our dear Uncle Chucky and psionics. So I'm really excited about this now. Yeah.
I don't know if this should be F-Files. Maybe I'm not sure. I mean, it qualifies. I think.
I think it. I think it does.
All right.
So, although we were talking about before psionic warfare in the US, but we are a Balkan Amerikanski podcast, so we are now talking about the same subject, but in Balkans or in 90s Serbia.
Oh, 90s Serbia. Magical time in a magical place. Oof.
You have to cue in the background some like, I don't know, diesel music or some shit.
Yes. So many wonderful things to choose from.
Yeah. So these warriors that we'll talk about today were direct enemies of basically the people, of some of the people that you were talking about.
Oh.
And I think you mentioned characters that appeared in the George Clooney Man Who Stared at Goats movie.
Absolutely. The 1st Earth Battalion, that side story. Good stuff.
There are like many similarities between these groups of people. Like some of these people also have this kind of quasi-hippie outlook, at least in some phases. They try to present themselves as such, like they are not about hurting people. Mm-hmm. They want to be friends with everyone, and so on. And but that also, as events unfolded in the 90s and 2000s, they kind of also did some revision of their own history and changed their ideology a little bit and how they present themselves and so on.
I see.
So that's also a part of it.
They shuttered the moon base.
Yeah. I mean, mostly like they're kind of the way they describe their motivation and ethics changed, I think, a little bit. It became less aggressive and more passive aggressive, which they thought it was like more kind of pacifist. It's like, we're not doing this to you. You're doing this to yourself because you're evil.
Stop hitting yourself.
We only facilitate the bad things that happen to you. We don't do them, actually. Yeah. Something like this.
Okay. Sounds like black magic to me, Ray. Right off the bat there.
Yeah, they're explicitly against black magic and Satanists, who are their enemies.
Okay.
So we're talking about 90s Serbia. And that's a thing, for itself. I don't know how to describe it. Serbia in the 90s. It was a very strange place, Serbia in the 90s. It's almost kind of partial, like you couldn't, I mean, in some way everything looked normal, but also everything was completely decomposing on every level, Like, like a lot of like ideologies of like the, petty bourgeois orientation, like, liberals and conservatives and even a lot of leftists. Usually they talk about, in many different places of the world. I mean, the context always differs, but a lot of them talk about, a crisis of values and how the values are gone and so on. Mm-hmm. And it's a kind of cliche. Mm-hmm. Usually they don't really describe what do they mean by that, what values, what's going on and so on. There's no analysis. Yes. But there is in a way some truth to it, like in a sense of like, like, for example, if we talk about 90s Serbia, but more if you look at it in a more kind of, if you use more sociological terminology, like, anomy or like whatever, like, like, which means like a transitioning society where everything kind of dissolves and it's between two systems and therefore it's in a total crisis. What's right or wrong is kind of, the idea of that is rapidly changing. or from a more kind of Marxian perspective, you could say it was also the era of primitive accumulation, which always comes back. So a period where
cashing out.
You could say a new ruling class was being formed, or the old ruling class was changing what was the basis of their power in society. Transitioning from what you might call a state capital system into like a liberal one, or so-called free market, and so on. And so this was happening in the context of a civil war in Yugoslavia, which was exactly, what was kind of needed in order for this transition to happen, the transition of power and primitive accumulation and so on. I mean, we talked about how we don't exactly see what happened in Yugoslavia from this kind of more Western anti-imperialist perspective, which is, in kind of a weird way, often very US-centric, although a lot of these people are primarily critics of US imperialism. In a way, they look everything through kind of a US-centric position. And, and a lot of people, regardless of their politics, who come from Yugoslavia would primarily talk about domestic factors, of which there were plenty, in Yugoslavia, if you want to describe what happened there in the 90s.
People also like to talk about how, the CIA and the Germans and the Vatican organized everything.
They do. Many do. But this is usually on a level of like... your
drunk uncle or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, okay, they are like... This is true. This exists. Like ranging from like conspiracy theories to, I don't know, like bar talk. And even some scholars who are usually of nationalist orientation have some ideas like this. But most of the people who are like, let's say, centrist or liberal or normie, like journalists or scholars and critiques of like nationalism or whatever, usually I talk about like a lot of these domestic factors. Or, as I said, there were like so many of them. It's like also, even if you don't believe they were primary cause for what happened, like it kind of doesn't make sense to completely disregard them and not take them into account.
Right.
All of these relations between different factions of the bureaucratic ruling class, what was their relationship to nationalism, how capital was privatized, and so on. This is a big part of this story. And if you don't take it into account, then you're not taking much into account, So,
which isn't also to say that external factors didn't exist. They did, definitely.
Yeah.
And they played a role, but not everything
Pope did curse Serbia for 1,000 years.
I mean, of course, external factors always exist and they play a role, especially if, they are like imperial powers and so on, of course. Yeah. They are very cynical and so on, but it's not, I don't think there's any proof that, that the war that happened in this solution was like a planned project of an imperial power. I think when it started happening, they adjusted to it and cynically used it for their own ends. But I don't think that in itself it was some kind of a project. Like they could easily deal with Yugoslavia as a whole transitioning into a neoliberal project and also like use the situation for their own ends. Like but okay, it's a different story. But
for a future arc.
Yeah, the arc where we try to figure out how we would have privatized Yugoslavia.
Yes, in a more just way.
That's right.
Ante Markovic.
Yeah. So that's roughly like what was going on. And so like if you want to have some feeling for how weird it was, you can watch, we mentioned this a bunch of times, the documentary Vidimo se učitelji.
Yeah.
I don't know is it the title of it, is it translated to English?
I think it actually is on YouTube in English called See You in the Obituaries, and I believe...
Yes, it is.
Because I made my dad watch it once, because, it's good to have stuff to say to your dad.
Yeah. I mean, that documentary specifically, like, focuses on, like, the crime, gangs, organized crime, and interviewing people involved in that. So, I mean, that's only one aspect of what was going on. But a big part of the war and this so-called transition and so on. And then like a fictional film that you might watch is Srđan Dragovic's film, I guess, Wounds.
The Wounds. Very, very popular film. With like when it's recommended to non-Balkan people, they tend to very much like it because it's a brutal film.
Yes,
and also very funny.
Yes, I mean these are all partial like illustrations of what it was. It wasn't only that, but you can sort of get some sort of a feeling how it was to live in that society. And there is also a direct connection to today's topic between Wounds and that film and this topic, because there is a TV show is portrayed in that film, which is a kind of a parody of an actual existing TV show that promoted a lot of insanity from the 90s. Like there was lots of criminals who were guests there talking about their lives and so on, but also all kinds of weirdos, including the star of our episode today, Spasoje Vlajic, who's the most famous. Yes, Spasoje Vlajic is a weirdo who's like a kind of a new agey psionic warrior, let's say. And he was like one of the most frequent guests at that show. Especially in the dawn of NATO bombing of Serbia. I think just before that, he was like 8 or 9 times a guest on the show. And he talked about, his ideas and so on. And I think the purpose was for him to spread some optimism, how we are winning the Psionic War or the...
Sure.
Parapsychological war.
That's very different than how the U.S. handled that. Their main... line was, we are losing the Psionic War to the Soviets. So it is nice to hear someone's winning that war.
Oh, no, yeah. Of course they were winning. They planned for Serbia to become a world power in psionic warfare. And not only planned, they predicted and created that reality. So those are those are the heroes of today's... so Spasoje Vlajic was a part of... or usually seen as a representative of the group that we'll be discussing today.
Which we should probably mention by name at this point. Since
they have a very ridiculous name, and it's Group 69.
All right.
And by the way, if you look up Group 69 on the internet... the first results you get are not going to be about this at all.
Not directly.
It's going to be like Pornhub, X-Hamster, all kinds of wonderful things.
Of course. I mean, so Group 69 is a psionic warfare group that existed kind of attached or a part of the Serbian army, which in the 90s was still called the Yugoslav army, because there still existed a federation of Serbia and Montenegro, which was called the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. And it was an unofficial but unknown entity inside of the army for all the higher-ups knew of its existence.
Okay.
So, some of the characters that will appear are the already mentioned Spasoje Vlajic. He was born in 1946. He died a few years ago, just recently, 2 or 3 years ago he died. He is an engineer of crystallography.
Okay.
And he was...
what now?
Crystallography. That's it's when you get your crystals together to measure things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bovis ratings and whatnot.
He actually was an actual engineer. He had that degree, and he worked primarily as a high school teacher. He taught computer science.
Okay.
In the early 90s, he also had for a brief time other job while being a part of Group 69. He was some kind of a cultural attaché, in I think Stuttgart. He worked in some diplomatic capacity connected to culture. Although he kind of mysteriously likes to say, I did other things as well, of course. Something like this.
Okay.
He is a very weird guy. When he was younger, he was a part of a kind of a neo-avant-garde art movement which started in Yugoslavia, which is called Signalism, and which saw itself as a continuation of Surrealism. He was somehow...
When exactly are we talking?
I think Signalism was started...
in the 60s or 70s or
60s,
what?
70s, 80s, I think. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
He's a very kind of a new agey type of person. He's very calm. He's very soft-spoken. And that's a deliberate choice. He speaks in a way that's very akin to how many Serbian Orthodox like bishops and monks speak. So very soft spoken. It produces this kind of a ASMR effect. Really,
we've discussed this tactic before previously when we discussed religious figures. It's a thing they do to confuse you.
And Spasojev Lajic does that deliberately. It also has something to do with his thesis, because he thinks that like when a person is very calm, then you can control your brain waves. And he's all about brain waves. That's basically the way psionics and the astral plane and all of this shit works for him. It's connected with the brain waves and your control of them. So I think that also has this effect. For example, he claims that at some point he was a guest. He was often a guest on many TV stations, like not only national ones but local ones, and continued to be so. Like later on in his life, he was on like YouTube shows and so on. But I think this was like early 2000s. He was a guest at some local TV station somewhere in Serbia, and he said he was talking about he was especially somehow concentrated and calm, and was talking about how you can also use your mind to start earthquakes and such things.
Nice.
And this was like the witching hour. It was like the midnight when he was talking about this, because it's a weird local TV station that has weirdos at midnight talking about nonsense there.
I mean, this is the Serbian equivalent of public access.
Yes.
Except not completely DIY.
Yes. And what happened then was like many viewers started calling the TV station and said that right at that moment when he was saying they felt an earthquake, and later on he claims got a like institutional confirmation that actually an earthquake happened in that area of Serbia, right? And he was saying this.
Nice. Amazing. Uncle Chucky can do that too. He once stopped a tornado.
I mean, of course. I mean, what kind of a psionic warrior are you if you cannot do this? No?
I'm not saying I'm judging them against each other, but one of them has to win, and it's going to be Uncle Chucky.
Lajic also had, like, he lived in New Belgrade, which is this very, I don't know, how would you describe New Belgrade?
Sweet. If you love Yugo modernist architecture, it's like paradise. If you hate it, you're not going to like it there.
So he lived in one of these residential buildings there, and he used, I think in the socialist era, they were very optimistic about, life in socialism. So they had in these buildings, they had this kind of common spaces, which were not apartments. They were supposed to be used communally by the residents there for whatever they wanted to use them. And I think Spasojev Lajic was renting one of such of these places and was giving 6 lectures per week there.
Holy shit.
To his followers.
I mean, this is like a church. This is like a chapel, pretty much then. This is how you do like, DIY religion in America.
I mean, this is exactly what it was. So there is this like British Serbian academic called Jovan Byford. And he wrote a book about conspiracy theories, I don't know, almost 20 years ago, something like this. And he was researching these people and interviewing them for the book. He wasn't completely honest with them. He didn't say that he's writing a book about them. He said that he's writing a book about the influence of like the foreign influence in the Serbian society or something like this, something that they like to hear.
Sure.
So he specifically interviewed Spasojev Lajic and attended these lectures. And he said it was like he was sitting at a desk which was a bit elevated from everyone else and was surrounded by Orthodox icons and religious imagery and so on. And the lectures were attended by around 15 people, and they were mostly women. And he said that when he talked with Spasojev Lajic, and then Lajic invited him to attend his meeting, that he said something like, "Oh, so we won't do the standard like service that I do, like religious service that I do usually, because you will be our guest." So he implied that he's actually treating it exactly as you said, as some kind of a church. And
wow, so he is a straight up like cult leader.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Although he completely used like the Orthodox form, and would often, especially in the later years, invoke Nikolai Velimirovic.
Oh, nice.
Which we have an episode on, who was a Serbian fascist Orthodox bishop, who also in his younger days was a kind of a new agey guy interested in theosophy and so on.
Yeah. Looks like a wizard.
Yes. So the other...
To be fair, all Orthodox priests kind of look like wizards or monks especially.
Looks like an evil stench wizard.
Yeah. Well, not some who want to be modern, they do some, they keep their beard relatively short and so on.
But a lot of them got the fucking wizard look.
Yeah. Yeah. But not everyone looks like, he's more, like how in the Hobbit movies that I don't like, Radagast the wizard is portrayed as he's this especially kind of weird, kind of crazy wizard who has like a bird living in his hair who shits on him, so he has like this bird shit all over him. Nicola was kind of like that, I think, from how he's described.
Okay.
Another guy of this trio who founded Group 69. The two other guys are colonels, both of them.
Okay, because I was about to say this is a military thing, right? And this guy's not part of the military at all. He's a high school teacher, come new age.
Computer science teacher.
Yeah, computer science teacher.
An avant-garde poet.
Avant-garde poet who is doing sermons in the communal area of their apartment buildings.
Yes.
For a bunch of women who come to listen to him multiple times a week.
Well, he says that already in 1983, Light says that he started working for the Yugoslav military in some capacity.
Oh, okay.
Advisory capacity, maybe, huh?
Well, yes. I will talk a little bit why that happened. I mean, it's completely nonsensical, but it happened.
Did they lose the spy plane and they needed a psychic to find it?
No, they were thinking in advance. What if something like that happened?
There we go. Yeah. Smart.
Yeah.
Get ahead of it.
So the two other founders were colonels, who are, at least one of them, like even more crazy than Spasojević, but probably both. So one is called Svetozar Radišić, born in 1949. I think he's still alive, actually. He actually has a PhD in whatever, I don't know, military science. I mean, he's like...
okay.
He's a colonel.
Yeah. And so he was like a colonel already, I think, in the 90s. And in 1992-94 period, he was the main editor of their main theoretical journal. And so, it's like he has a high rank and he's doing something pretty important. But he was also a weirdo who was kind of mocked by his fellow officers for, being spooky. I guess he was the Fox Mulder of the Yugoslav army.
Spooky Mulder.
Yeah.
Spooky Svetozar, Radišić.
In the, sorry, I think I remember his name now, actually. I'm like 95% sure it was Major General Albert P. Stubblebine III.
Okay.
I think that might be right.
You had him in mind?
Yeah. He was the guy that they called Spooky. Like, he had that nickname around his associates and the military. INSCOM, I think he was working in at the time. He was the guy that tried to walk through walls.
Of course.
Yeah. Did Colonel Radišić?
No, we don't. He's more of a theorist than a practitioner.
Nice.
Allegedly, there were many, many practitioners. We'll talk about them.
Cool.
They are more of the anonymous kind. They like to keep them away from the CIA's all-seeing eye because they didn't want them.
HARPnet.
Yeah, HARP is a part of this story.
Of course,
absolutely. I mean, they believe that it's like an instrument of CIA psionic warfare.
Absolutely, nailed it.
I mean, it is.
Absolutely. What the fuck else is it doing there?
Yes. So, Svetozar Radišić is very much the opposite of what, if you have, any kind of prejudice or, well, I'm not even going to say that, but idea of like what a Serbian military guy in the 90s is, Radišić is kind of very much the opposite of that. He's very soft-spoken, has this kind of more kind of intellectual vibe, not macho in presentation at all.
Okay.
Except that all three of these guys have mustaches, so they're very old school kind of guys.
That could also be like mid-century mystic modern kind of vibe too. I don't know.
Yeah. No, the third guy is another colonel. He's called Bogoslav Stojmenovic, or Bogi. So he's called the Colonel Bogi, as they call him.
Mm-hmm.
He's the oldest of them. He was born in the 30s. He also died some years ago. Mm. He's also an engineer, like Spasoje Vlajic. He has an MA. I'm not sure if he has also had a PhD, but he specialized in cybernetics.
Okay.
And his job in the Yugoslav army was coordinating ammunition supply. So he was calculating how much should go where and so on. So he was kind of a central person for that in the Yugoslav military system. He was also completely, totally nuts.
Okay.
And Svetozar Radišić said, is kind of the opposite of what you might think of a Serbian military guy in the 90s would be. Then Bogi is he's not the opposite. He's in another dimension from that. He's it's something completely unexpected, at least for me. There are some interviews with him he did before he died. And he's a guy who comes from some small village. And he's very much like an old villager guy who's a guy who sells you potatoes in a street of a Serbian city out of his truck or something like that. And he talks in a very kind of rural dialect, and he's a kind of witty, kind of very pretty energetic old Serbian village guy. Okay, who's also a colonel and is an expert in cybernetics somehow.
Interesting. Good group.
Yes. And so he was completely nuts. And I think later on was a bit of an embarrassment for Group 69 when he started appearing in public because of the way he speaks and thinks, which is really not, it's mostly not really comprehensive. What the fuck is he talking about even?
The singularity, dude.
Yes. So.
Oh, wow, you're right. Sorry, I just looked him up.
Yes. Well, describe him.
I mean, as pretty much what Ray said, except he's pretty well dressed here for the show, because he's on Happy TV and
yeah. You have to see him, listen to him talk. You will be amazed.
Yeah, it's
worth it, really. So a lot of this is really, I mean, the foundation of all of this is magical thinking. That's what was going on here. This is it really. For example, a lot of pseudo historians who are also very prominent in the 90s, a lot of this science relies on bad. I wouldn't even call it linguistics, but language shit.
Like puns that people take too seriously.
Well, for example, Bogi was seen at the Yugoslav military headquarters in the 90s walking around and dragging a large branch of a tree.
Okay.
And then he was asked by other military people, what the fuck are you doing?
Hey,
this is a colonel there, okay? And he's just walking in he's walking in circles with this large branch.
Nice.
And he told him, this is acacia, which is acacia.
Yeah.
And he said, and then they asked him so what the fuck are you doing with it? And he said, akam ciu, which is a funny kind of rural way of saying I'm dragging the CIA. Or
wow.
I'm fucking with the CIA, because that's
nice.
Kind of when you say the name of the tree, that's how it sounds.
Well, let's all do that. That sounds like a perfectly good ritual
that's
practice.
Awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
What a king.
Yes, and this is of course. So he's not because he is a kind of a Balkan villager person. So he of course understands that this is also funny, and he laughs all the time. Yeah. But he also thinks it's actually a serious thing,
Right.
And they are all the time like this, So
awesome.
This, I think, very much corresponds to the term we used before on this show, which is barbarogenius.
Yes.
I think, I don't know, maybe we explained it before. I think these people are definitely that. And Colonel Bogi especially is a barbarogenius person.
Great.
So when he was dragging around this acacia branch, what was he doing with it? What was the
I think he was using some magic against the CIA, because a lot of what these people say is like what they talk about, all of these formulas and so on they have. Like Vlaich is a creator of something that he calls the light formula, which I think he published the book on it. And it's an actual formula or something like that. And he, I think, published the book in the 80s or about it. And he had actual military people and like scientists who are also officers talking about this book at his like book presentations and so on. But these are like crazy person's ideas about predicting the future, controlling brain frequencies, controlling people, astral projection, and so on. You know, so a lot of things they talk about a lot of about thought patterns. So sometimes they shorten it to just patterns. So they say like, we created a pattern that has 4 steps, and we will apply it. We will apply it if NATO attacks Serbia or something like that. And then when you read about it, what it is just an idea, a nonsensical idea they had that has 5 nonsensical parts, and that is the pattern. Like,
that's fucking psionics, dude. That's called in the United States of America, we call that a thought form.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the same thing, though. I like the idea of a pattern better, though.
They call it
often
thought patterns. Yeah.
Well, sometimes it helps to actually get on the internet and print out an actual pattern, some sort of symbolic psionic machine.
I'm sure they do this. These people did many things. I mean, there are tons of books, as I said, that
it's great.
I cannot go into all of that. I mean, I will not go into it at all. Spasiv Vlaich wrote like 3 books about Group 69. I read one of them, and this, what I'm talking about today, will be based on just 2 or 3 anecdotes from that book, because it's very repetitive and nonsensical, and it's I mean, I read the whole thing, but I mean,
is this a self-published thing, or?
Yes, I think so. Yes, or like maybe he had some like publishing project that he ran himself or something like that.
I see.
So there was a kind of a Group 69 became known already in the 90s, and there was a prelude to them getting public. And this was when Vladimir Zhirinovsky visited Serbia and Montenegro in 1994. Vladimir Zhirinovsky is the crazy extreme right-wing politician from Russia who is the head of the so-called Liberal Democratic Party. He's a fascist.
I always love that name, too. I love that Zhirinovsky was head of the Liberal Democratic Party.
Great.
Yes. And his party was also, it is very known, was founded by the KGB to be some kind of like false opposition to the Yeltsin regime. Very much a clown, but like a very brutal clown, violent, also funny. So he's a direct counterpart of Vojislav Šešelj in Serbia.
And they were friends.
And they were friends and allies, who's exactly the same kind of person. And his party, the Serbian Radical Party, was also founded by the Milosevic State Security. So it's exactly the same person. So Zhirinovsky visited Serbia and Montenegro in 1994. He visited Šešelj. I think he had a press conference with him in Montenegro and with Šešelj, and then he announced how he is in possession or in knowledge, scientific knowledge of a secret, very powerful weapon. Which is an electronic laser weapon.
Yes.
Which is called Ellipton.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
And he announced that it will be tested by Russian scientists in Bosnia, presumably by, I don't know, killing Muslims or something like this.
Yeah.
From the top of the pyramid where the laser energies are strongest.
Yes.
Well, the Bosnian Serbs didn't control the top of the pyramid at that time, so...
I see.
Yeah. A bit later, I think in the same year, his deputy leader of the party, a guy called Vidnjekin, also visited Serbia, and he had a conference, but this time with Arkan. So Arkan, the famous, infamous war criminal, who also, and crime lord, who also had, and state security asset as well.
And like celebrity.
And celebrity. And many other things.
Oh, yeah.
He also had, he was also a politician and had a kind of not so significant political party, which this time had press conference with his Zhirinovsky's deputy leader in Serbia, and they talked more about this weapon called Elpiton, and it was announced how it will be produced in Serbia in the city of Shabat.
Okay.
They also kind of, the scientist Arkan and this other guy explain how it's what it does. It somehow fuses protons and neutrons in a very high temperature, something like this. They were saying some nonsense. And later on, like the press did some investigation about this factory that's supposed to produce this laser electrical weapon, and found out it's like a factory owned by a guy from Arkan's party, which up to that point was producing potties for toddlers.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
And they were specifically known for a kind of potty which was called svirko. I don't know how to translate this, but it was called like this because it played music when used.
Yes, it's a little player.
Yes.
Musician.
Yes. So it was kind of the thing was discredited, and everyone made fun of this whole thing at the time.
I'm also just imagining like Adkan meeting with this scientist who is like one of these dudes that probably also is one of the motherfuckers that's like offering Colombian cartels to sell them nuclear submarines and like all this shit Russia in the 90s is like, oh yeah, we're gonna produce this laser weapon here in Serbia at your potty factory.
Yes. Oh, very funny.
And they all know it's kind of a joke, probably, because they're just moving other illicit things and, kind of working on... There's already shit happening on a higher level with a lot more money going on, so this is just kind of like a little fun side project for some people.
I like the idea, though, of it being like a very serious moment when they come in and he's like, oh yeah, okay, I've got this amazing laser gun, we have the technology, we can build it. Yes, but do you have the science? And then this guy stands up from the back of the room and says something like, perhaps you've heard of the Svirko. Everybody turns around slowly, whispers, the musical toilet. He's the musical toilet guy. Anybody can do it. It's the guy that combined music and pooping.
If we get enough toddlers to poop in this one type of potty, the laser will focus onto Washington.
I mean, who knows? With these people, maybe it was a potty-based weapon. I mean, you never know.
It's science. It's messy,
I mean, this was also the time when Politica, which is the paper of record for Serbia, the oldest, but also always supporting the government, whatever the government is at the time, newspaper, but with some they have a good reputation, they're not a tabloid and so on.
Yeah, we know the type.
Their science editor organized a public event which was used to transport mined images from Belgrade to Novosibirsk. And this was a public event that happened. It was very successful. They did it. From Group 69 books, we find out that this was basically their project.
That's great. That would be the second time then that Serbia's been involved in that exact experiment. The first time, I think, being set up by violin player Bolkovic for the benefit of Andrija Puharic back when he was trying to do exactly that. They did some shape recognizing. Yeah.
Well, Barbara geniuses think alike.
There you go. I guess. Yeah. Something in the water.
So I think all of this happening kind of encouraged some of the Group 69 people to, start talking about what they do publicly.
All right.
So in 1994, in the same year, Svetozar Radišić decided to publish a few texts which explicitly mention Group 69 and what they do and what is their purpose. And he did so in a very popular kind of entertainment but also political magazine called Duga, which I think is very tightly connected with military intelligence, based on who worked in that magazine throughout the decades and what they did and so on. And so Svetozar Radišić published these texts using his real name, but it was never mentioned that he's a colonel in the military or anything like this. So readers.
So he was at this time an active colonel.
Yes,
right. He wasn't retired or anything. He was
he was
actively in the military.
Active colonel who's also the editor of their main theoretical journal.
Okay.
And he's publishing these texts talking about how also the Yugoslav army, like many other sophisticated armies in the world, has their own parapsychological unit, and it's called Group 69, and basically saying,
why 69 though? Because it's cool.
So one explanation is that there was like a bulletin used by the army, which was something called like the Red Bulletin, or something like this. And it was issued to generals, colonels, some kind of internal news thing, only for generals and colonels. And Svetozar Radišić wrote in it, and I think in the issue 69 of it is when he, for the first time, suggested that the Yugoslav army needs a unit like that. Because other armies have it.
Right.
And then they decided to name it after that, but I think they instantly also gave other meanings to the number because they're all about numbers and stupid meanings and so on. I think like they were saying like 6 is an evil number, 9 is a good number, they're the opposite, you robber, something, I don't know. Something dumb.
But Radišić and Stojmanović weren't 69ing or anything like that.
I mean, for sure, I think that like I think that the sexual connotation was not like below them, or somehow, because they are like Balkan people or, like all kind of South Europeans are not so they're not so neurotic about sex like many of the Northern Europeans are. I think they don't mind the sexual connotation. They're like, whatever. Like, so I think that was not some embarrassment for them. I think they don't mention it in their books, but I'm sure it was also on their mind.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah. So he writes in these articles how this is like, there exists now a Serbian parapsychological defense system, and how Group 69 is a special group for the defense of psionic weapons by our adversaries. So these are the things that Vlaić would later on develop much more detail in his books. And Radišić would later on use different terminology for the same thing. And some of this was actually used by, influenced by American writing on this subject. I think he was very in tune with what the Americans were doing, and in a way it was inspired by what they knew about the kind of men who stare at goats type of units.
Right,
This was like a direct kind of response to that. So sometimes when he wanted to sound more kind of scientific, he would use this terminology that he found in American journals. So he would use the term neocortical war, for example. I think he has a book with that title. Yeah.
I mean, okay, that one does piss me off a little bit. I mean, I've been totally with you up till now, but I just I don't know why they keep doing this. There's really no point. Just call it like a cool thing. You're making it up anyway. You don't have to pretend it's real by calling it the neurocortical something.
Neocortical.
Neocortical.
Yeah, but a part of them being cool is them being like pseudoscientific, and like
That's
fake
true.
knowledgeable. That's kind of.
I get it.
If they don't have that, like,
bums me
there
out.
wouldn't be 15 like women listening to him.
Yeah.
So Radišić also used a term called, which he named all-dimensional defense, something like that.
Ooh, okay. Ooh, that sounds good. Actually, I'm back again. I'm with him again.
Well, you don't want to be.
Huh?
You don't want to be conservative and conventional. You need to.
No. They can come from anywhere.
Yes,
the enemy can be anywhere in any dimension. You need an all-dimensional defense.
Specifically from the 5th dimension.
Absolutely, that's the fucking worst dimension. Those pricks.
Yes. And you know what the 5th dimension also is?
Tell me, please.
You might be surprised to learn this.
Is it a William Pelly related thing?
No. You know what it is?
Uh-uh.
It's an acausal realm.
Yes!
Oh,
this is... Wow, these guys should have been our first episode. Fuck the 09A. This is it. It's all here. It's all
this
here.
is way better.
Spasa Vlaich is all about causality. And
nice.
They don't actually call it. They call this the causal world. The causal world is, our reality is the causal world.
Good.
The fifth dimension. Okay. The fifth dimension is the term Vlaich uses. All of them use different terminology, of course.
Right.
Why not?
You got to make a name.
Vlaich calls it the fifth dimension, but I guess that is the same as the astral plane and some other things that I used to call it. So this is this world which is not causal. They don't exactly call it acausal. They use the term, I don't know how to exactly translate it, but it's something like, surrealism. So they use the same term in Serbo-Croatian. So it's like super causal or beyond causal.
It's etymologically the same word, though, right? Except that, sur is like above.
Yes. So they mean specifically it's not causal. It's not. It's not cause and effect world.
Exactly.
I'm
just like, I know, man. Come on. I'm thinking all the time that this is. We always have a new listener.
I was about to say, if you're a new listener to the show, you're probably lost.
Old listeners are like, speed it up, Ray. Speed it up. Come on, man. We know. You
don't need. It doesn't make any sense. Or if it doesn't make any sense to you, then it's okay.
You got it. Yeah, you're on.
That's how it's supposed to be.
Exactly.
So they say so they use a stupid term like it's not causal. It's ruled by meaningful connections or something like that. So meaningful thinking, whatever has meaning for them, I guess, works.
Sure.
Which is not causal, of course, because they're nuts.
Yeah.
It's like random shit. Okay. But you can use the fifth dimension and these thought patterns to affect the causal world somehow. Okay. Is the basic idea. And it has and you do it through learning how to control your brain waves.
Yes. It's been the same since fucking goddamn. Yeah, back on the Patreon we talked about that dude. I believe his name was Henry Holt, who wrote that original psychokinesis shit. He exactly said this. It was it's an evolution of mesmerism, traveled through various ruling class circles and ending up in some garage in New Belgrade. Fantastic.
Okay, this will be, of course, longer than I thought it would be.
Dude, keep it coming. This is great. I'm taking notes right now. This is all solid lore. This is all.
There will be this is the introduction, which will end soon, and then I'll give you 3 anecdotes, fun anecdotes from their psionic warfare history.
Great.
And then we'll end it after that. So, okay, this was now in the public. The guy wrote it himself. And some people in the military noticed and didn't really like what was going on or were kind of confused. Although they already knew that this group exists, they were kind of embarrassed. Why is this guy, a colonel, writing this text in this journal? It's strange. So there was another colonel called Ljubodrag Stojadinovic who was their superior. They were all colonels, but Stojadinovic, Ljubodrag, was the head of an information section of the army, which both Radišić and Colonel Bogi worked in. So in that sense, he was their boss, although had the same rank. And he called Radišić for a meeting. It was he said later on that his task was basically to determine if Radišić is if he's governed by magical thinking, basically if he's nuts, what's going on.
Sure.
And had a conversation with him. And after that, decided to not to fire Radišić, but for him not to be in what he was at that time. So he was not anymore the editor of their main theoretical journal. He was put some other place, which was and was basically instructed not to appear in public anymore and talk nonsense. Although, Ljubodrag Stojadinovic knew that Group 69 existed and that the generals know about it, and it's a sanctioned thing.
Right.
But that was out of his jurisdiction. He couldn't do anything about that. He was just thinking, okay, this is very strange and funny. But then Ljubodrag Stojadinovic, their enemy, was next year in 95, he was actually fired from the military because he was in some conflict with the guy who was the main general, the head of the chief of staff. And so he was fired and he became a journalist and like a kind of a liberal journalist who was very much against the Milosevic regime, wrote a bunch of books and is a kind of well-known figure in Serbia as a kind of a liberal journalist. And many people even don't know that at some point he was like a colonel in the military. But one of the first things that he wrote as a journalist was he wrote like funny texts about Group 69 and what he knows about them and so on, which they didn't like. And to this day, they are very much mad that he did that because he made fun of them. So
who's mean?
Yeah, and Radicic to this day he's saying how the whole spectacle around Group 69 was created by this colonel, their enemy, Ljubodrag Stojadinovic, who wrote about them and invented things and so on. But he totally doesn't mention that it was himself who actually wrote first about the Group 69 and made these claims and so on.
Yeah, they self-doxed.
Yes. So Stojadinovic, when he was making fun of them, he also connected them to other kind of loony individuals who said he said they were coming to army headquarters to have these meetings with Group 69 and were a part of Group 69. So these were like people who were not military themselves, but were a part of it. So one of them was Milja Vujanovic. She was an actress who was a part of movies, Yugoslav movies since the 60s. And then at some point she decided that she had enough of that career and she became an astrologist and gave her herself another name. So she was Milja Vujanovic Regulus from that point on. And she would appear in the 90s on television, predicting the future and also like being a hardcore Serbian nationalist at the same time. So of course she fitted with this group very well. She also predicted for herself that she will marry a military officer, which she did, and then I think another colonel it was, or I don't know, someone, and that guy actually shot her.
Damn.
After that she was disabled. So in the last years of her life, she was disabled. Another person Stojadinovic said was a part of this was a crazy guy called Milic of Machva, who's he's a painter who kind of he dressed as a Renaissance painter, like kind of a stereotype of Renaissance painter.
Do you have like the little collar and shit or what?
Yeah, and the thing on the head, like Leonardo wore, or like
great.
And he also gave himself this name. He doesn't have a proper last name. He's called Of Machva. Machva is the region where his village is in Serbia. Sure. And he also, I think, called himself a vampire. Was into all of this. But he's interesting because he was a part of another group that we mentioned briefly, of this art group called Mediala.
Oh,
which
right.
was founded in the 50s. I tried to connect them somehow, possibly with Miguel Serrano at some point. So he was a part of that. And the third guy that was mentioned as having relations with them was Dragoš Kalejic. And we mentioned him as well in that episode. He's like a Serbian fascist guy, also a painter who knew Evola personally and was like the leader of the new right in Serbia, or like this, what now is called alt-right, or what used to be called alt-right. I guess it imploded. But it's kind of Evolian shit and so on. So he was also like into Group 69. And this was now publicly stated.
Damn, okay.
Yeah. But there was like, they themselves say that there were like many people with like abilities, who were like part of that group. And it's like, when you read their books, like it's very strange because they talk about different teams of Group 69 and they all have like 3 members or something like that. And it's always like 2 letters and then a few numbers. So they constantly refer to like many, many different teams with many members who are doing their own shit, so it's a bit, it's not clear, is it an actual group or is it like a bunch of weirdos in small teams who are somehow in some communication or what's going on? especially because some of these themes also claim how they recruit military members to be a part of their warfare, but who don't know that they are recruited by them. So that complicates things, in determining who's actually a part of this group and who's not.
Right.
So a lot of this, so Johan Byford, the British Serbian academic, wrote about them, and he basically said a lot of this is kind of this quantum mechanics kind of quackery.
Okay. Yeah, the new electricity.
Yes, that, and the other component, which is specifically or was specifically Serbian, is the Nikola Tesla lore. Okay.
Okay, of course.
I was wondering, when Tesla would make an appearance.
Tesla is their main guy. Like Tesla is their god. I mean, prophet. They think of him as a prophet. Like he's a religious figure for them. He is the founder of the discipline that they do. Like so, for example, they constantly so they believe all of these things that Tesla was in communication with aliens. Maybe he was an alien. Maybe all Serbs are aliens. That kind of thinking. And also. So they always refer to, Vlajic does in his books, to the principle of the unjustly afflicted pain. Okay, this is a scientific principle that they use, and also the principle of the basically what you reap, you will sow. Was that how the so it's like for the specific reaping, you will have an adequate sowing or something like this principle. Okay.
Beautifully stated. Yes.
Yeah, they all constantly mention this thing. They don't sound much better in Serbo Croatian, but they constantly repeat this shit all the time. And this is based in Tesla science. Okay, he's founder of these two scientific principles. Tesla, by the way, wasn't a scientist. Like he didn't. Tesla, I think, never wrote a scientific paper. I think.
I think you're right about that. Yeah.
So what? He was an extraordinary individual for sure. Like whenever you think of him, he was pretty strange. And
lovable. Let's admit it.
Also, he invented alternating current and talked to pigeons.
He is an inventor. Absolutely.
But they found some journal entry maybe actually it was a published text, but in some newspaper or something like this from Tesla, because Tesla was also crazy, and in this text he's saying how wherever he was since he was a young man, he realized something, and this is whenever some great injustice was done to him, he felt some deep pain that in his youth could not call anything else but cosmic pain. Okay. So he felt cosmic pain, and what happened after that with all of these people who did wrong to him would somehow get fucked up. Okay, and this is basically what he says. Okay, and therefore he is the founder of this whole discipline that they're doing. And he did that in this little text he wrote in some newspaper.
That is awesome. So this adds a whole new dimension to the psionics. Whatever you call it, mythology that they have about themselves. This places Tesla really as the first psionics user in history. Then, very cool. I love it.
So basically, the whole thing is about transmission of brainwaves on very low frequencies below 32 hertz these days.
Sure.
If you do that,
and this
is what Tesla called scalar waves.
Yeah, scalar waves, baby. Yeah. That's it. That's the future of everything that will never work. And for the next 10 years, it's about scalar waves.
So who is able to control this technology of your own brain will win the parapsychological war.
Definitely.
Is their idea.
Yeah.
So what they did mainly was they were fucking up NATO planes and such. And they were doing things against the actions of anti-Serbian world leaders and politicians.
Okay.
So basically, anything that ever happened bad to any of these two things, a NATO plane or a Western politician, is something that they did. Okay.
Yeah.
So definitely. But hold on. So the Serbian state is at this point engaged in a number of activities in neighboring countries, yet they're directing their astral warfare against the main powers. So, like, why then, if they had such power, weren't they like, frying Franjo Tudjman's brain or like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that they were like small potatoes for them, I think.
Yeah.
So they wanted to focus on the puppet masters abroad.
This is the war against the devil, okay? In many dimensions. Franjo Tudjman is a small player in this thing.
Yeah.
Sure. So, also, he had many financial deals with their leader, Milosevic. Maybe that's also a part of it.
And I was using that as an example. Although I guess they all kind of had financial deals with one another at some point. So,
for example, the Turkish Prime Minister Turgut Özal died under suspicious circumstances. It's Group 69 who did it.
Yeah.
Nice.
The Pope breaks a leg. It's Group 69 who did it.
Oh, damn. They defeated the Blue Army of Fatima even.
Yes. A NATO plane falls into the ocean. Group 69 did it.
Hell
yeah. That's right. That's right. And then they got the boys over at Stanford Research International to go and find it.
Yeah. So their main function is to fight the New World Order conspiracy.
Sure.
Which is, by the way, a Judeo-Khazar conspiracy.
Oh,
okay.
Cool. So
they're deep in
They're
this.
anti-Semites.
They're anti-Semites, yes.
Wait, what year are we talking about this? When did the Khazars come in?
Early 90s.
Nice.
They toned it down in the 2000s, the anti-Semitic part, although it's there, if you know what you're looking at. It's more like Masonic than Jewish then, and so on. But yeah, the Judeo, and also they use this Khazar thing to say that they are not anti-Semites because Khazars are fake Jews.
Right, because they're fake Jews. And
this is current shit. This is Fall of Cabal. This is like a lot of QAnon stuff. This is they were way early on it. Good for them.
And they're also very much into New Agey things. Like later on, specifically, Vlaich is like into this kind of quasi Orthodox Christianity thing. But Radicic, the Colonel Radicic, is much more into like Sai Baba and so on. But more so into the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, like transcendental meditation thing.
Okay.
Of course.
And he cites the leader of the TM movement a lot, called like American guy called John Hagelin or something like this, and uses his like physics to explain things, and he's like a important guy for him. So they're using like an American like transcendental meditation guy. That guy John Hagelin, he actually is a physicist, and he has a PhD from Harvard of all the places. But he's like he has some theories that are like there's no physicist in the world who I think supports them at all.
Sure. He has a degree in physics from Harvard?
I think PhD, yeah.
All right. You sure it's not crystallology?
No, I think it's physics. Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean,
Just
I
checking.
mean, it's
Well, he has a degree, and he went into something that's very lucrative.
Yeah.
I mean, having a degree doesn't.
No, I'm surprised he didn't get more of a hearing. That's what I'm trying to say.
I mean, he's probably. I mean, I don't know if his ideas are as crazy and as dumb as these are. Maybe, who knows? I don't know what he's doing. But these people like it, okay?
Yeah. Bad sign.
Yeah. I mean, they like a lot of things. Like, for some reason, they like, I think, two of them cite Karl Popper as like an important figure, in, like, when they figure out something. Like, which is very strange. Like, I think both Bogi and Radicic cite Karl Popper.
Interesting.
So at the time, like Radicic also like organized like a scientific conference, which was organized by the military actually, and a lot of like academics who were a part of it were also military officers. But also Dragoš Kalić, the leader of the New Right, had a paper in this conference, and it was a conference about the New World Order and the conspiracy against the Serbs and Slavs by the Judeo-Christian whatever New World Order. So that's early 90s. They're doing things like this. but also at the same time, they actually have, so later on, they would be connected. I think they had some connection with Yule, which was the party of Mira Markovic, who was the spouse of Slobodan Milosevic, Serbian president. And it was they defined themselves as a left-wing party. Yule is short for Yugoslav left, like almost communist, basically pro-Yugoslav and so on. But also it was a party of the richest, like tycoons in Serbia at the time.
Although she defined herself as having a pro-Chinese orientation, right?
Yes. She did have like relations with the Chinese state and would go there. And her books, horrible books, were published in China at the time. I think Chinese people are probably very confused by her books, honestly. But
if anybody fucking read them, they're published there.
Yeah. So there was a connect because the TM movement also has political parties in different parts of the world. They're usually called the Party of the Natural Law. It exists in the U.S. The guy that I mentioned was their presidential candidate a bunch of times in the U.S. And such a thing existed in Serbia as well. They were calling them Yogi Flyers because they were like
the Yogi Flyers. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
So they are part of the TM movement, and they have some thinking that's very similar to Group 69, and they have some common members with them. I think. Yeah. Okay, this is the end of the introduction.
Okay. Wait, what? This is the end of the introduction?
Yes. I will rationalize the rest somehow. It's not that much, but I'm talking more than I have in notes actually. We are now going straight into the anecdotes that he describes, which is more like practice. This was like theory. Now we're going to go into warfare.
Yes. I love this. I'm so inspired right now. Suicidal. You gave me a new lease on life. What were you talking about?
No, but if you actually read the shit that I'm not talking about. Okay?
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for that. Ray, this has been illuminating. I feel deeply inspired. This is some good lore you gave us here.
Yeah. I think we just decided this is maybe enough for the first episode. You basically got now what Group 69 is, and this is really it. And the other stuff is like goofy things they did, which we'll definitely talk about, but that's, I think, a separate episode.
And that's kind of, to me, even the best part.
Oh, no, definitely is the best part.
Yeah.
This is breaking the Pope's leg. This is, doing all that kind of fun shit.
Yeah. That definitely is the best part. But I will end this with a kind of a preview of some of their thinking and what kind of action they were into.
Yeah.
So I mentioned Ljubodar Savic. This is their arch enemy, is the colonel who wanted to get rid of them and then was fired himself and became a journalist and wrote about them and so on. He also mentioned that among them was this kind of lower rank officer. I think the last name was Savic.
Uh-huh.
He was a member of Group 69. He was put into retirement because official reason was that he was emotionally immature. Okay. So this guy had some analysis of his own, which became a part of Group 69 lore or reality, how they saw the world. And it had to do with a specific well, like a well that you would take water out of.
Sure.
In Belgrade. I said this already publicly, but it wasn't on our podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Story.
Okay.
Oh, right.
This is a timely story as well, in fact.
Yes.
It's very timely.
Yeah.
It's about, it concerns another Spenglerian acausal philosopher of history.
But the most important one that we've talked about ever. We've talked about many Spenglerian acausal philosophers on the show.
Yeah.
One of them actually translated that into real state power.
Yes. Yeah, created hell on earth for plenty.
For very many people.
So this Savic had the idea that this well, which is a well in Belgrade, it's an old well, not as old as its name implies, because it's called the Roman well. It's absolutely not Roman. I don't know why it's called Roman. It's Austrian, so which means that it's probably built in the 18th century.
Well, I guess Catholic, right? Potato.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true because it was built in a brief period when Serbia became a part of the Habsburg Empire, and the emperor at the time, Charles something, was at the same time the Holy Roman Emperor. So, maybe has some connection there. So it's a well in the center of Belgrade, it's quite deep, 70 meters, something like this. It's in this old fortress, which is at the same time a park, nice place, and so on. But
it's the main tourist destination in Belgrade is the Kalemegdan Fortress. Anybody that ever visits the city will most likely walk by the Roman well and maybe take the tour as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, now you got it. After you hear this story, you're going to have to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Savic had an idea that it's not so nice, everything about this well. And in fact, everything that's fucked up in Serbia and the Balkans has to do with this well, because it's connected with some infernal energy.
Yeah, checks out.
And forces. And that come out.
Did these dudes do like psychedelics? Was this guy just like on mushrooms in Kalemegdan and was like, looking at it, he's like, every fucking thing that's happening in this country that's wrong is coming from this fucking well, man.
I mean, maybe there are some of these people who don't need psychedelics. They sound like this. I mean,
sure.
But it is that kind of thinking, I would say. And so, of course, what you need to do is you need to plug this well. But this is not like a procedure
Clearly,
that you just go there with a bunch of concrete or something like this. This would not do against infernal energies. So what you need to do, you need somehow to cancel them. You need to cancel out these infernal energies by kidnapping and throwing a demonic anti-Serbian figure into the well. So they had a list. So these people are actually military, and they, as I will mention in the next episode, have people who are probably part of like not only military intelligence but also state security connected with them. People who actually were thinking about kidnapping and assassinating foreign politicians and so on are connected to this group, by the way. So they have a list of these people, these anti-Serbian demonic figures, and it's like, most of the Clinton administration is on the list, of course, Madeleine Albright, of course. Also, like Genscher, the German, I think, foreign minister or something like this, foreign affairs. And one of the people who was a prominent person on this list was the mentioned Spenglerian Akolzel philosopher of history, Henry Kissinger.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's too late to do that. Maybe it's now even easier.
Right, yeah.
But it was like, I have to say, it was a pretty good idea. I mean,
fantastic idea.
Yes. I mean, it's such a, much better than just, I don't know, assassinating him or something like that.
Totally. Yes.
I mean, can you even imagine if that was like the news one morning?
No.
Henry Kissinger was kidnapped. And
Henry Kissinger kidnapped from his home. Reports show he was taken to Belgrade, where he was thrown into the Roman well.
Amazing.
So I think that would be like... I'm definitely against nationalism and nationalist movements and also Serbian nationalism.
Yes, but you're pro-Barbaro genius plans.
But if they did that, I would have to say, okay, you did something, boys. Something good.
Yeah.
And it's, and it would also be, I think that would be, after that, I think would subscribe to the end of history theory. I think time should be measured since that date. Probably. So I think maybe this Savic, was actually right when I think about it.
But so to them,
strong case.
But it's interesting that they chose Kissinger because I think that has to do a lot with their Yugoslav army schooling, where Kissinger to them was some sort of evil figure because Kissinger had some relatively favorable positions to the Serbs during the Yugoslav wars.
Interesting. Maybe it was also their anti-Semitism and general anti-Americanism.
I would guess that it's like an anti-Americanism brought about from like the fact that they, were military officers that were brought up in the age of, the 1970s and, knowing who Henry Kissinger was and knowing that he is this kind of supreme force in like, most American administrations since whatever.
Okay,
Nixon.
But remember, he was only one name on this list. There were other people, but he was one of them. And I guess also he's a Rockefeller guy, and Rockefeller is like, for these people, he's like the leader of the cabal.
Yeah, okay. I understand. It's so interesting to me also how very current all of this is. If you look to, like I said, the sort of outskirts of QAnon, this stuff's all there, and it's new to a whole new generation. But some guys in Belgrade were.
So if we really wanted to cash in,
keeping it real, surreal,
we would get these QAnon people into some more Group 69 shit.
Yeah,
get them to pay us for this information. Like unlock some of the Group 69 secrets to like QAnon weirdos that are just now discovering.
Well, I mean, there is I will talk about these anecdotes about
my brain's thinking in like hustle mode where I'm just like,
money
off these people.
I think it's possible. I know what you're saying.
You reminded me of something that I forgot to say in this. But in addition to all of the like psionic warfare anecdotes that I will talk about in the next episode, I will also say something about kind of a almost direct connection to QAnon lore that these people have.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Which I forgot to talk about in this episode.
Well,
I think they would go crazy if they knew about this. The QAnon people would.
Well, you guys are going to have to find out if you can get to our next episode. We'll see. We'll see where that ends up on the old paywall. We don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, damn. These guys do not disappoint. Definitely not depressed after this. Feeling good. Feeling that psionic energy.
Because I didn't talk about all of the science. I think.
Well, that's true.
Crazy.
Or any of the dark fucking, intelligence agency shit, I guess, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for letting us have this fun illusion.
Is great. I love these guys. I mean, I don't. They're insane. But it's hilarious because like when you look at like all the shit that was happening at the time in Serbia and neighboring countries, the fact that these guys existed and were taken seriously by some people, obviously not like, they're higher up in the military who was probably just like, what are these guys writing? Like, what?
Right.
But that there were other people who did take this seriously is absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, their magic did work because they actually did create a parallel reality for themselves to exist in.
Yes.
Like, their country was at such a low point, everything was fucked up, and they were like these, these cosmic warriors who were part of the military doing this shit for a living, So they did create a reality.
Look at fucking Bogis Stojmanovic, like that guy's fucking king. Like, dude.
Yes.
Like this dude came out on top somehow. And of course, like we should talk about like the whole weird New Age connection to other forms of Serbian nationalism. The fact that like Radovan Karadzic became like a New Age spiritual healer and all that kind of shit is perhaps, I would say, like, well, perhaps he had a connection to some of these people as well.
Yeah, that wouldn't be surprising at all.
Yeah.
Especially because the military was the ones who were, or parts of the military, helping some of these war criminals, like when they were hiding from the Hague Tribunal and so on. Yeah.
Well, they should have used psionics.
Maybe they did.
That's what it's there for.
Yeah.
To tap into the ether.
Indeed.
Well, I'm feeling pretty fifth dimensional right now.
Me too.
The fifth dimension, of course, being, what was it, NATO or something? What was the fifth dimension?
The causal realm.
The causal realm.
The astral plane.
Yeah. That was one or the other. I wasn't remembering which one. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, Then I guess we need to return to our acausal plane when the mic goes off.
NATO is also active in the fifth dimension, you know? Very
of course.
To be precise, it's Section 9 of the CIA. And we'll hear more about them in the next episode.
Excellent.
Section 9 can't compare it to 69. Come on, it's a much better fucking number.
It's true.
Yeah, it's a much higher number, too. Well,
it's higher and also 69. Come on.
Yes. Yeah, over the CIA, I choose Group of 69 every time.
Yeah.
Of course, because we'll have to choose in the acausal future that they're creating for us by summoning demons and sacrificing them in Roman wells.
Yes.
Stay tuned. All right, guys.
Hi, guys.
I have so many fucking stat blocks to make after this episode. I'm gonna hang up now and just get on it.
All right.
Okay.
Bye.
Later.
Bye.